Weber here. Episode. Well, I guess. I guess this is episode number one, even though we've tried to do this many times. Long story short, we're trying to walk the walk after talking the talk of telling small business owners, entrepreneurs, and other people that we work with that putting original content out there is important, and it doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be high editing quality. It doesn't have to be expert level, $1,000 production quality type stuff. That's not the point. I'm a big believer in authenticity. I think if your content is authentic, it'll come through that way to the viewer or the reader or the listener. And ultimately, that's what's going to connect with the audience. At least I hope. That's my hypothesis. So, this is my attempt to prove that hypothesis um, by starting our own vlog here on Big Red Jelly. We are going to dive into many different topics, but ultimately, what we want to do is document our entrepreneurial journey. We are a small business. We are a startup. We've been around for less than 2 years. So we're actually about 3 or 4 months away from our 2 year mark. And, relatively speaking, that's a very new business. And we want to document, well, what are some of the hurdles that we face? How did we come how did we come to a solution? How did we overcome these hurdles? And in hopes that that might assist other small business owners and entrepreneurs. So, having said that, a little bit of background on Big Red Jelly, just in case anyone's wondering. We are a digital marketing and digital branding agency. We do everything from custom web design to social media to content marketing to marketing strategy, personal branding, online advertising. We do a lot of different stuff, and that's what I love about what we do. Every day is so different, not only in the services that we offer and that we're working on, but also the industries that we get to explore. So um, it's been a wild ride so far. And for that reason, I've always told Ben, I've told our team, said, look, guys, we've got to start producing our own content and at the very least document our journey for ourselves that we can put on YouTube. And if people seem to connect with what we're sharing, then even better. So today, I just wanted to talk about one specific subject, which is how to deal with burnout. What is burnout? That term gets thrown around quite a bit now. Many of you watching or listening are probably entrepreneurs yourself in some way or fashion, or you're thinking about it. Maybe you're a student. Maybe you're a teacher. Maybe you're a professional who's been in your field for over a decade. Everyone experiences burnout, where you feel like you just cannot keep going. You've reached the end of the road. Your mind, for me, I'll kind of describe what it feels like for myself. Um, Maybe I finish work and it's pretty late. Maybe it's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 p.m., midnight, and I feel like I can't even think straight. I might be on a phone call with a friend after I finish working, and they're talking, and it's not even computing to me. It's just going over my head, and then I'll kind of catch myself and say, "Gee, what's going on?" So you get mentally fatigued, physically you're tired, you're stressed, and it's just overwhelming. So that's been a huge hurdle for me personally these last few months. However, having said that, the last month or so, I feel like we've hit a turning point at Big Red Jelly where I don't feel that way anymore, and not as much. In fact, I was just talking to one of my team members a couple of days ago, and I was like, I've got to be honest. I went to a meeting, and it was about an hour drive. Normally, when I get back from that, so 2 hours have gone by. Normally, I have this like fear of opening up my email to see how many emails and problems and requests have come through in that 2 hour block. Usually, it's around it can be anywhere from 15 to 50 plus, just in a 2 hour block, kind of right in that early afternoon window where everything just seems to be super busy. And I came back from that trip, and I had one email, and it was just like a notification from Facebook or something like that. And I was like, surely there's something wrong with my email. Checked my spam folder, checked my other email, refreshed. I even had Zach, one of our team members, I had him send me an email because I was legitimately convinced that my email wasn't working. So why do I bring that up? I was so happy, and it was what a what a freeing feeling that was to come back and say, wow, things are getting taken care of. And I know that they're getting taken care of because normally I get that many emails. So that was a huge turning point, and it made me start to reflect. Well, what did I do to build up to this point? What did I specifically start to do that changed my perspective and changed the way that I did my work here at Big Red Jelly? So, I mean, many of you may know when you start a business, ultimately you've got two options on how you want to start. You need resources to start a business. I think we can all agree on that. You need resources, you need time, you need money sometimes. So, but you need resources. That's the one thing. Now, resources can be classified as many different things, but you need stuff to create something, right? Can't create something out of nothing. At least I don't think so. So, um, as an entrepreneur, you kind of have those two pathways to go down. Pathway number one is, okay, I'm going to go raise money so that I can then buy the resources that I need, or buy the team that I need, or pay employees that I need. I'm going to go out and raise $50,000, and that's going to hold me over for X amount of months, which I've already calculated that I should start making profit after X amount, etc. We've all heard this before, at least many of us have. Obviously, the downside to raising money is, sometimes you constrain yourself and the equity that you still own. But it's probably a faster way of doing things, and maybe a little bit easier on you personally. But then again, I don't know. It kind of just shifts the pressure from you from other areas to, okay, well, now you've got pressure from investors and from people that you borrowed money from. So when we started Big Red Jelly, I went down path number two, which is I don't have 50 grand and I don't want to go raise 50 grand or whatever that number is, right? So, but you've got to still have the same amount of necessary resources to build the business that you're looking to build. So I still needed 50 grand of resources or energy. So what does that mean? And that's where the entrepreneur finds themselves in these 80-hour work weeks, right? Or where you're working until 5 p.m. just keeping your head above water with client work. Now 5 p.m. hits, and now it's time to work on admin stuff, taxes, accounting, reports, finding an office, paying the electrical bill, all this other stuff that normally there's an employee or an assistant to do so. But you're putting in the hours that equates that amount of money that you could have raised. And so going down path number two, that's where I found myself in this kind of year-long struggle of that 80-hour grind, or who even knows what the hours are, right? No one keeps track in those early phases. I just know that it's the hardest I've ever worked on a personal project, and you do hit that point where it was almost like I was looking forward to 5 p.m. Not because I got to go home, but because I knew that everyone else was going home. And that meant that the emails were stopping and coming into my inbox, right? I looked forward to 5 p.m. because I knew that's when the client work was done. And now it was time to focus on my business, on my team, and try to find better ways of doing it so I do a little bit less of that next time. So question number one is, what was the first step that I did that helped me get to a point where I felt a little bit of freedom? The very first thing I did was I read a book that many of you have heard. It's called The E-Myth. And I probably should have had the book here available to show people. Go and look up that book. Go get it on Amazon. I think it's on Audible. but it's the E-Myth, and I'm pretty sure it was written over 20 years ago. I could be wrong. It could be even older than that. But it's not a new book. It's an old book, and what's crazy is I didn't know it was an old book until the third to last chapter. I actually finally did a little bit of research. That's how relevant that information was inside that book. But to give you a quick synopsis of what that book is all about the fact that why do so many startups and small businesses fail? The statistics are crazy. It's like within the first 5 years, like 90% of startups or small businesses fail. And then the next 5 years after that, 50% of those 10% that survived fail. So you're going up against some what seems to be insurmountable odds. And then the author, and I should know his name, but he brings up that point, but then he says, no, on the other side of the coin, why are franchises, though, which are still classified as small businesses, they succeed 90% of the time. So they have the opposite, they have a success rate that's equal to the failure rate of other small businesses. And he's like, what's the difference? There's probably several things, several variables, but the one that's biggest to him, and I agree, is that they have a super specific process in place. So specific, right? So he uses McDonald's as the kind of the shining star of, they have processes down to how long each patty is on each side on the stove. You flip the patty after X amount of seconds. Then you have this amount of time to move it to the next station. So on, so forth, boom, boom, boom. And that changed the way I started working in Big Red Jelly. So the next time I came into work and I was doing client-related work, and as an entrepreneur, you don't have the money yet to hire someone, and you need to get money. So you're caught in between these two phases of I still need to do the work itself, and I don't have enough money yet or success yet to go and hand this off to someone. Most of us find ourselves in that gap. And the biggest problem for me was I kept doing the technical work, right? I was the electrician who was just doing the electrical work all the time. And it made money, but it was never going to scale. It was never going to go beyond that. So the next time I came into work, after I finished this book, was I had this just determination to, next time I do client work, I'm going to document what I do down to a T. I'm going to write it down step by step by step. Here's what I'm doing right now. So it took extra time. Those days were longer because not only was I doing the work, but I was documenting the process every step of the way. And here's what's crazy about that, is that though it seems like that's just adding extra work, that streamlined everything for me. Everything. So I got so meticulous into what I was processing out that the next time I did it was that much easier. I followed my process. I had templates in place for everything. I had specific step-by-step examples on how to do this, that, and the other. So even if you are saying to yourself, I don't need to do that because I'm my business, I know how to do it already, it's all memorized up here, I don't need to write it down. Write it down. Write it down. Process it out. Be as specific as possible, because the time will come where you do have enough success, or you hit that mark where you're too busy. You finally bring on that new team member. You finally can afford a part-time employee or a paid intern even. They need that specific process. And you can't sit there and hold their hand, but you need a super specific process that they can walk through. So driving efficiency throughout everything that I did was a game changer for me. But that didn't mean that my long hours are just done like that. I still was finding myself doing client work, technical work as I like to call it, from 9 to 5, 7 a.m. to 5, depending on the day. And then at 5 was, now I get to work on my processes. I get to work on a new process. And I'd focus on one particular thing each day. But after a couple of weeks, after 3 weeks, 4 weeks, almost all of our systems and our services were documented, were processed, and I could easily hand that off to someone, knowing that it was, as long as they followed that process, it was going to be successful. We continue to do that here at Big Red Jelly, and it's kind of turned into our mantra. We're all about being efficient, and that's what helps us kind of be more cost effective within the space, is the fact that we're all about process, and we don't listen to people when they say, well, processes make me less creative. I think that's so untrue. I think it's one of the biggest misconceptions in marketing, that if you put processes or rules or steps around a creative person and they think it's going to constrict them, I really highly debate that. In fact, I think it helps them be more efficient in the work that has to get done, that it allows them more time to be creative and to focus on the areas that need that human aspect, right? So you're limiting the human error, and the process will always trump the possibility of there being human error. And then that allows more time for us as humans to focus on areas that I think we are best at, right? So that brings up point number 2, which is just to look through each and all of your steps and say, is this something that a human needs to be spending time on, or is there a tool out there that can automate this for me? That's a huge discussion right now, which is the whole AI, how many jobs are going to be lost, etc. So why not be ahead of the curve right now and just say, what's some of the last things that AI are going to be able to do? In my opinion, it's obviously, at least for now, it's the creative side of most of these of most businesses. So, creating custom art and design and person to person closing sales. There's so much automation you can do to get up to that point, but there's still that human aspect that AI or robots have not mastered yet. Who knows what the future will hold? But that's what I tell our team all the time is, guys, when we implement a new process or new steps, you might feel threatened at first, like I'm less creative. No, we're just getting rid of the redundant administrative steps that you have to take, so that now you can focus more time on being creative. Anyway, so going back to burnout, that was those would be my 2 pieces of advice, and that's what I wanted to talk on for just this first kind of video vlog, I suppose, and this podcast was how I came to deal with burnout. Still happens, still very much possible. But again, the more that you can process things out, the better. I have to say, maybe this will be a separate topic for next time, but how many of us have clients, partners, or colleagues that are responsible for just the majority of the stress that you feel during the day, right? Usually those people don't have processes in place. We can all think of that person who will send you a text, at 3:30 and say, hey, can I drop by your office in 30 minutes and can we meet, can we chat? Or, hey, I just got this, can you take a look at it? And it's a text, and then tomorrow it's an email, and then he calls you at spontaneous times of the day. That person or individual does not have a process in place. And to me, that's a liability, and that's dangerous, right? So people will always respect your processes. They'll always respect processes that you put into place, but it takes those extra hours up front to get those in place that are going to save you more time on the back end. So it's a journey that's going to continue. I'm sure I'll still encounter moments of feeling stressed out. That's completely normal, but hey, process. What's that quote? Maybe someone can comment below, but there's something to the effect of a process beats talent, or process beats talent, or something like that. Process eats talent for breakfast. Something. If that's not a quote, it is now by me, yours truly. So comment below. Let me know what you think. How do you deal with burnout when you wake up in the morning, or maybe it's the mid-afternoon and you've already put out 3 or 4 fires and you're feeling that burnout? How do you deal with burnout? And then more importantly, how do you get ahead of it for next time? What do you do, right? What are the most common culprits for your burnout? Are they micromanaging clients? Are they employees or team members? Are they tools or processes that are breaking? Are they lack of sales? Let me know, because I'd love to talk about one of those in more detail. I think there are plenty of things that we've learned here at Big Red Jelly that I can share with other people, and vice versa. So tune in next time, and we'll go over one of those in a little bit more depth. Thank you.